little rest and relaxation. Treat her to luxurious Next Level Cozy Signature Soft Fleece. They're as light as a dream and will keep her oh so warm, like snuggling in her favorite blanket. She'll love to cuddle in cozy escape PJs on those extra chilly nights. With Pajamagram, you can even add gift packaging. Order now for guaranteed delivery by Christmas. She's missed out on a lot of things she loves this year, so this Christmas, give her the escape she deserves. These new PJs are selling fast, so order today. Go to Pajamagram.com right now. That's Pajamagram.com to order cozy escape pajamas. Pajamagram.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
Delays continue in both directions. A big Cottonwood Canyon SR 190 by Butler Fork for avalanche control work, and then delays due to road work and a crash northbound I-15. This starts after Hillfield in Layton and continues up to 650 north in Clearfield. The perfect present doesn't always come wrapped under the tree. Treat your loved ones with an unforgettable afternoon or evening of music and laughter with the Utah Symphony. Find your tickets at utahsymphony.org/holiday. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, highs warmer than normal, 52 today and tomorrow. And the temperature inversion we were expecting has not really shown up. We'll see clouds, maybe a rain shower on Thursday. And right now we're at 52 degrees, partly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
America's voice of reason, Boyd Matheson, is out today, so you get the backup voice of reason for the country. I'm willing to take that role for the next 2 hours. Marty Carpenter sitting in today for Boyd, who is away, and it's great to be with you on what has kind of been a little bit of a slow news day, but there's still some really interesting stuff for us to talk about. A whole lot going on. We got a presidential debate coming up tomorrow on the Republican side. That's of some interest. We've got some announcements in the state. The governor rolling out his budget, a lot to see there because he's rolling it out sort of in stages. Yesterday they talked about one topic, today another topic. I'll give you some thoughts on how they're rolling that out and the way that goes from a communication perspective. But I want to talk about a particular aspect of it today as well. Earlier today, sort of day 2 of the governor's budget rollout, he unveiled, he did a couple things today. He created a new position, Senior Advisor for Housing Strategy and Innovation. That's part of the news they're making today as the administration rolled out this next segment of their budget that included $150 million to build 35,000 new starter homes over the next 4 years. Look, every time I've been on the show, probably in the last 3 to 6 months, we have talked about housing in some form or another. Housing prices are very high in our state. They're very high across the country, but we're not seeing a whole lot of dip here, even as the Fed has increased rates and made it harder for people to get loans so that they can go buy, try to put the brakes on the housing market to some extent. That still hasn't made a big difference here, and part of it is we only have so much land, and part of it is we have a growing population, and part of it is just that housing, we have a shortage in it, and it's not affordable for a lot of people. So the new Senior Advisor for Housing Strategy and Innovation in the Cox administration is a man named Steve Waldrop. And Steve joins us right now to talk a little bit about his new role and what the administration is trying to accomplish in this effort. Steve, thanks so much for being with us today. And I guess first and foremost, congratulations on the new gig.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of challenges up ahead, but this is an area I'm passionate about. I've spent the last several years in both a legislative capacity and then in private foundation and consulting and other things, trying to address this very issue.
No stranger to housing and housing policy. Tell us about your new role and how you will determine whether or not you've been successful in that role. What does success look like for you in this position?
Well, I think the governor laid out very clearly his measure of success, and that is 35,000 new starter homes in the next, and I'm going to correct you on this, it's 5 years, so give me one more year.
You got it.
We will be measuring that statistic. That will be the primary measure, I think, based on the governor's policy objectives this morning, will be to create homes that are affordable. And the starter home price right now is $450,000. We're hopeful that we can get that under $400,000. Needs to be low enough that the working professional Utah workers can get into home ownership. They can access the wealth generation of that, and they can create generational wealth for themselves and their families. It's the number one savings tool in our country.
What factors have led developers to build the type of homes that we have maybe enough of, or an adequate amount of, the sort of the larger, more expensive homes, or that are on a larger piece of land? What are the market forces that are driving us to have sort of enough of that type of home, but not enough of the starter homes?
Well, there's probably a couple of main factors in that. One is that our cities are in charge of zoning, and so that zoning is handled locally, counties in some instances, but primarily cities. And they tend to favor larger lots because that allows for more expensive housing, less density, less traffic, less of the impacts of housing. And so you have that going on where you have larger lot zoning happening across the state in many cities. And then from a developer standpoint, they make more money building more expensive homes. Their profit margins are higher. They don't build as many, so fewer headaches, higher profit margins. It's pretty simple economics that is the driver on that side of the equation.
How much does regulation factor into that? And what does government do, whether it's at the municipal level or any other level, that maybe increases or protects the quality of the product, but drives the price up? How much has that changed over the past 20 years that maybe is a driving factor in this as well?
No, that's an excellent question. Sort of the fallacy that we talk about is the free market in housing, and I think housing is probably the most heavily regulated thing that we have in this country, from the top to the bottom, from federal loan guidelines and policies down to the local government. It is regulated at every step of the way. And as I mentioned, the move toward larger lots as housing, as land becomes more scarce, then larger lots become more of a premium. So you have price pressures to increase that as we run out of available land for new city creation. You think about what's happened over the last few years in the southwest part of the Salt Lake Valley, how much growth has happened there. And when you look at it now, there's not a lot of land left out there. So you have these market forces that are working against starter homes, and then you combine that with government policies that really favor less density. In many instances, there are a few very good exceptions. I think Salt Lake City has done an excellent job on trying to create starter home and affordable housing in their city. Others have done the same thing, but there are many cities that have just not jumped on that bandwagon, and that's largely a reflection of not in my backyard or NIMBY attitude, where people think that more density equals a destruction of their way of life. And my argument is they couldn't be more wrong, that more density does not destroy their way of life. The quickest way to destroy their way of life is to export all of our kids because they can't find housing.
Yeah, and we've seen Salt Lake City's population for under 18 shrink by like 12% in the last decade. So we see some of that. Steve, I looked through the proposal that the governor's put out in his budget proposal. First-time homebuyers assistance program going to get an extra $50 million. State Infrastructure Bank, specifically for housing projects, another $75 million. Increase the affordable housing through recommending $5 million for the Community Land Trust program. But one that jumped out to me was recruiting an off-site housing manufacturer to our state. Tell us a little bit about why that's something that the governor wants to focus on.
Well, part of the challenge with housing is just construction costs. Inflation has affected every industry, every everything we touch has been affected by the inflationary pressures over the last few years. And so when we look at the cost of building housing, it's risen exponentially, and that is reflected in the price of housing, obviously. When you look at pre-manufactured homes, there's an opportunity there to create very nice homes. The homes that are created in a pre-manufactured setting can be every bit as good as a stick-built on-site home. But because they're built in controlled environments, in a warehouse or a manufacturing facility, you've got the advantage of having workers sort of captive and doing more assembly line production of housing units, and that obviously drives costs down. And then you're offsetting that with the cost of transportation from the construction facility to wherever it's being placed. And right now, it's Idaho. We have some manufacturers in Utah. They're relatively small. If we want to do this at a scale, we're going to have to attract either homegrown or bring in somebody that can do that at scale and take advantage of the scalability of construction in a controlled environment like that.
Steve Waldrop is about to take over as the governor's senior advisor for housing strategy and innovation. As someone with kids growing closer and closer to the age where they're going to need to find their own housing, I'm cheering for you, and I'm sure a lot of people in our state are as well. So best of luck to you in the new role. Thank
you so much. Appreciate being on.
All right, Steve Waldrop, again, taking over as the senior advisor for housing strategy and innovation in the Cox administration. We're going to talk about another element of the governor's budget when we come back from the break, and that is his proposal yesterday to go really tackle the challenge of mental health and homelessness.
The biggest financial decision you'll ever make.
I've always felt like my kids will own a home.
And it's trickier than ever.
Insurance, PMI, don't even get me started on home repairs.
If you're buying or selling a home, Dave and Debbie have you covered. The 2024 housing market. Each morning this week at 10:20 on KSL News Radio.
Hi, I'm Celeste Edmonds, Executive Director of the Christmas Box House. When I was a foster child, Christmas felt like something that was for everyone but me. Christmas should be for all children. The Christmas Box is working with the Utah community to provide Christmas for nearly 2,800 at-risk children. To learn how you can help today, please contact us at thechristmasbox.org or Google us. Thank you and happy holidays.
This is Richard Paul Evans. I'm excited to announce a new book I co-wrote with Celeste Edmonds, director of the Christmas Box International. It's called Garbage Bag Girl. Years ago, I wrote a best-selling book called Finding Noelle based on Celeste's life. I always wanted to write her full story. Now I have. Warning, there are graphic parts. Her life was difficult, but ultimately, this book is about hope. I love this book. You can buy Garbage Bag Girl on Amazon. Garbage Bag Girl, now on sale.
Hi everyone, it's Congressman Blake Moore here. As 2023 comes to a close, my team and I are proud of the ways we have worked hard to serve the 1st District and represent your priorities in Congress. We have been laser focused on fighting inflation on the Ways and Means Committee, passing defense funding for Hill Air Force Base, and rooting out wasteful spending on the Budget Committee. I'm pushing legislation to increase affordability and price transparency in healthcare, lower taxes on middle-class families, advance the U.S.-Israel alliance, support Utah's recreational industry, and establish a Medal of Honor monument. And recently, I was elected to serve as vice chair of the House Republican Conference, the first Republican from Utah to ever be elected to House or Senate leadership. I'm honored to be in this role and look forward to elevating Utah issues at the leadership table. I'm hosting an interactive telephone town hall on Wednesday, December 6th at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, where I will take your questions and engage on topics that matter most to Utahns. Tune in on Wednesday, December 6th at 1 p.m. by dialing 833-305-1678 and learn more on my website at blakemore.house.gov. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
Crimson Collective's Utah FTW 360 app, giving you player profiles, game stats, exclusive videos, and a brand new Ram 1500. At the end of the year, one lucky fan will win a Ram 1500, and you can also win prizes like free tickets and signed merch each week. Anyone who downloads the app is entered to win, so get Crimson Collective's Utah FTW 360 app today. Winners track may vary, no purchase necessary. Giveaway starts at 12 a.m. Mountain Time on September 1st, 2023, and ends at 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time on December 31st, 2023. Open only to legal residents of the state of Utah, U.S., who are 21 or older with internet access and valid email address. Limit one entry per person, household, or email address. See official rules at ftwin360.com/truck giveaway for full details. Void where prohibited.
Brace yourself for the ultimate holiday deal with Consumer Cellular. Snag an incredible 50% off the Iris Flip when you buy before December 17th, making it only $34.50. The Iris Flip is all the phone and camera you need with a user-friendly design, the perfect flip phone companion. Plus, you'll get nationwide coverage and always free activation. Score 50% off when you use promo code RADIO50. Head over to consumercellular.com and use promo code RADIO50 during checkout to score this deal.
At EasyCater, we know ordering food for work can get complicated pretty fast.
We're going to need breakfast for the entire office on Thursday.
Janet wants really nice bagels.
Make sure some are gluten-free.
Make sure they have great coffee.
Can there also be waffles?
Janet has a hard stop at 9:30.
$15 a person
I'm going to need itemized receipts for this. Is the budget for breakfast different than what we're just going to grab and go? Fine.
Company breakfast? Just use EasyCater. Food for work delivered on time as ordered with a huge variety. 100,000 restaurants, one platform. Order 24/7 at EasyCater.com.
This hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, yesterday, Governor Cox was talking about housing for homeless people in Utah. Today, he's talking about housing for first-time home buyers as part of his state budget. Second, could Utah Senator Mike Lee become U.S. Attorney General in a second Trump administration? Third, Hamas is denying that its fighters raped women during its attack on Israel October 7th. The IDF is revealing new evidence. And right now, we're at 52 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
All right, Marty Carpenter in for Boyd Matheson today. You just heard Dan Bomas talking about the governor's budget rollout and how yesterday he was talking about housing for the homeless and mental health care services. And then today he's talking about housing for people looking to buy a home for the first time. We just talked to his new senior housing and innovation advisor, and now we're going to shift gears and go to what the governor was talking about yesterday. Not so much the housing for the homeless, but I want to dial in a little bit more on the mental health aspect of that. And it's not as much of the big money version, that big headline that was yesterday on KSL.com, $193 million to address homelessness and mental health. A smaller portion of that seems to be dedicated for the mental health side. But the governor's still focusing on some things there. He's got $8 million requested for mental health care, which includes $3.3 million for paid internships, student loan forgiveness, and training incentives, $2.9 million for ongoing funding for rural receiving centers and 2 additional mobile crisis teams. So the governor's got a plan. Let's just back up and talk a little bit about the governor's budget. Every governor does this. They do it about this time of year. It's a November, December thing. They've been working on it now for 2 or 3 months to dial it in, and then they go out and roll it. And it is the governor's budget proposal, because in our state, it is not the governor who sets the budget. It is the legislature. And that, like most spending things, start with the House of Representatives. And so, the governor's got this proposal. His team has worked, and he has worked with legislative leaders to say, this is what we want to go do. Are we all generally on the same page? And here's what the proposal is going forward. So now things kind of shift from what the governor has laid out as the goal or what he would like to see get done to the legislature actually doing the blocking and tackling of writing the bills, getting the appropriations set, moving them through the committees, and ultimately getting a vote on them so they end up in the budget. So let's shift our attention similarly to what the legislature is going to do specifically in relation to mental health. And I want to bring in, when the governor has a proposal like this, there's someone in the legislature who's got to go figure out the bill and who's going to carry a bill or a package of bills. And there will be a number of legislators who work on this. But one of those who is definitely going to be in the mix and a big player in this is actually the youngest member of the Utah House of Representatives, Representative Tyler Clancy. He represents District 60, and he is also a police officer. Representative Clancy, thanks so much for being with us.
Marty, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
And I understand you worked overnight last night, so we probably woke you up in the middle of what should be your REM sleep to come on and talk to us about it, so we appreciate that.
What's that saying? Best thing you can start your day with is radio?
Yeah, so, I think that's how that goes.
I don't know, something like that, right?
I think back to my time working here at KSL as an overnight news editor when I was fresh out of college, and I always would say if you're working overnights, you are either sleeping or thinking about when you're going to sleep. So I'm sure you can sympathize with that as well. All right, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the scope of the issue. What is it specifically that will be in the legislation? What are you working on specifically, either that fits with what the governor outlined yesterday or in addition to that or separate from that? What is the legislation you're trying to move forward on mental health issues specifically during the upcoming session?
Well, thanks for that intro, Marty. And I think the question about scope is a good one. Part of the legislation that we are pushing forward, and we've worked hard to collaborate with the Senate and also the executive branch, is getting our arms around the scope of the issue. One of the things that we're finding as a challenge is that we have individuals who are civilly committed, but due to lack of capacity or resources, they're still living in unsheltered homelessness on the street. And so part of our legislation is going to be to measure the capacity. What do we need, whether it's facilities, whether it's resources, whether it's therapists, because as we know, if we can't measure it, we can't manage it.
Yeah. What do community members share with you about this issue? What are you seeing from like a neighborhood level and how this really impacts parts of our state that are dealing with high levels of homelessness and with that, the mental health challenges that come, or just those that are dealing with mental health challenges at like a high rate within their community?
Well, and as you mentioned before, I have the opportunity to serve as a police officer in my real job, quote unquote. And I also serve as a member on the Utah Behavioral Health Response Commission. And so as I get feedback, just as you said, from community members, from neighbors, from people who work in the space, is they want more. They want more tools to be able to address this challenge. We've been using a term throughout our interim processes. Do we have the courage to care? Do we have the courage when we see someone who's experiencing a severe and persistent mental health crisis on our streets? Do we have the courage to care and intervene and get them the resources they need before it comes to a head, before there's some sort of criminal justice involvement? And so a lot of what we've revolved around is expanding our toolkit and giving those individuals, whether it is first responders or it is social workers, outreach, those types of individuals, more tools in the toolkit to take on those challenges.
The governor spoke a lot yesterday about needing to make changes to the licensure process and making sure that we can help take care of some of those. I think it's 8,000, a shortage of about 8,000 healthcare professionals. We also, as I understand it, have access issues. I was surprised to learn recently about the state mental hospital and surprised primarily to know that we have a single state mental hospital and that when it's obviously a single one, it's centralized, it's in one place. What kind of challenge does that pose for providing care when the crisis is really distributed across the state and not just in one specific area?
Well, Marty, you hit the nail on the head with talking about capacity challenges, and that's something that it's got to be key. And we've heard from mental health advocates from NAMI, Utah, to the Disability Law Center that they've said if we are going to expand any criteria, we want to make sure that we increase those resources. So when you talked about the capacity, we currently have one state hospital. It's in Utah County. But we realize that this challenge isn't just a centralized issue. From rural Utah all the way to Logan and college towns across the state, we really need to expand our access. And so that's something that we're looking at. Representative John Hawkins ran a bill last year to take a look at what our capacity resources are. What do we need in order to give the folks who need care the most the opportunity to succeed.
Yeah. Many people agree that we need to do better on this issue. I think that's kind of where we are across the board, that there's been a spike in mental health challenges, or at least the recognition of mental health challenges, regardless of socioeconomic status or any other class that you could break someone down in. But what does it actually look like in practicality, right? Like, I think so many times when we talk about legislation, it's, well, we're going to fund this by giving this many millions of dollars to it or this many millions of dollars to it. Could you just help our audience understand in practicality, once money is appropriated for something, what are the boots on the ground things that make the biggest difference, and where will we see the kind of difference being made to where we can say, hey, we're moving the needle in the right direction?
What you just described is another sentiment I hear from taxpayers across the state. Is they say, listen, Representative, we agree we need to do more, but what are we doing with the money we've already spent? How do we know that when we're investing resources, we are being good stewards and we're actually seeing outcomes? That's actually another priority bill that we are working on in the House. Once again, and we've worked to collaborate with our partners and then the Senate and in the executive branch to find something. But we want to make sure that as we do increase these investments, there's also accountability for the taxpayers. So what we're going to do is we're going to enhance the data collection so that we can measure client flow. And the most simple way I could describe it is we want to measure success. We want to measure outputs, not just input. So if I was going to come to you, Marty, and say, hey, we have this successful program. We've invested $300 million into it, and that's our metric of success. I want to come to you as if you're the taxpayer and say, Marty, we've invested X, Y, and Z, but we've been able to move 50 people this year from crisis to self-sufficiency. We've been able to move 50 people from the streets into long-term supportive facility, and we want to be able to measure it that way so that taxpayers can be confident that we're spending their money and being wise fiscal stewards.
The amount of money invested shows how much you care about it, but really the output is the final results and how we're moving the needle forward. I appreciate your work on this issue, Representative Clancy, and we appreciate you coming on to talk to us about it today.
It's my pleasure, Marty. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Representative Tyler Clancy, state representative from District 60. He's also a police officer in Provo. We appreciate him breaking into his rest time as he's off shift right now to get us caught up on what he's working on there. Hey, coming up next, we're going to talk to Becky Edwards, former member of the legislature. She's been a political candidate a couple of times. We're going to talk about her latest effort to promote better political leadership.
It's 1:31 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. A new report suggests if former President Donald Trump wins the chance to go back to the White House, he would consider a U.S. Senator from Utah to serve as his Attorney General. KSL News Radio's Becky Bruce reports.
The buzz comes from an article written by McKay Coppins of The Atlantic. He cited allies of the former president who suggested Senator Mike Lee could be on the short list for AG, along with fellow Senators Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley. The story is part of a series from The Atlantic called If Trump Wins.
The Attorney General leads the Department of Justice, and the former president has publicly said if he wins, he'll use the department to investigate people that he sees as having targeted him for political reasons. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The presidents of Harvard, MIT, and the University of Pennsylvania testifying before the House Education Committee. Critics have accused college administrators of allowing anti-Semitic rhetoric to fester and grow on their campuses. During her testimony, University of Pennsylvania President Liz McGill said anti-Semitism is an old, viral, and pernicious evil.
We immediately investigate any hateful act, cooperating with both law enforcement and the FBI, where we have identified individuals who have committed these acts in violation of either policy or law. We initiate disciplinary proceedings and engage law enforcement.
McGill says the current war between Israel and Hamas has only accelerated the surge. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average, still down on the day, but substantially less than earlier in the day. 44 points down right now. The NASDAQ, on the other hand, is up by about 40 points. And our KSL weather, day a lot warmer than they predicted. We'll have that for you just ahead. KSL News Time, 1:33.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight. The traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Hey, it's Amanda, and a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A nugget trays is that they're so easy for the holidays. They're warm and flavorful. It's always a crowd pleaser. When I put down a nugget tray, everyone is happy.
Hey, this is Brian, and the little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A nugget trays is the joy that it brings to me and everybody around me during the holidays. They're warm, juicy, and delicious.
Cater the holidays with Chick-fil-A today. Available on the Chick-fil-A app. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
This year, Staples will not be celebrating the holidays. Instead, we're celebrating the holiday deals with amazing savings for the holiday season. Save 50% on custom holiday cards, save 50% on custom invitations, and save 50% on custom photo gifts like mugs and calendars. During Staples holiday deals, it's not about the ho ho ho, it's about saving dough. Save 50% on custom cards, invitations, and photo gifts today at Staples. Ends 12/16. Visit staples.com/print for more details.
In 400 AD, a forgotten time in ancient America, warrior prophet Moroni must preserve the history of his fallen nation while being hunted by a ruthless tyrant.
Where is the brave general now?
From Freestyle Releasing and Great Scott Entertainment comes
The memory of my God,
The Oath.
my faith and my freedom, my wife and my son.
The Oath, coming to theaters this Friday. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. More information is available at oathmovie.com.
Jim Gaffigan here with some more Straight Talk. Let's take a moment to appreciate our sweet children, loving grandparents, and eternal soulmates. Now let's use them to save money on wireless. Because with the Straight Talk Silver Plan, you get 4 lines for just $25 a month with unlimited data and no contracts. So add those human pawns, loved ones, and save money. Thanks, kids. They're finally worth it. Straight Talk Wireless, available at Walmart.
Get 4 lines on Silver Unlimited for $25 per line per month, plus taxes and fees. For data management practices and additional terms, visit straighttalk.com.
Positive mortgage news? Interest rates have dropped and trending down from 2023 yearly highs. Click loansbyrick.com. Purchase or cashback loans. Visit loansbyrick.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
There was an accident affecting traffic in Big Cottonwood Canyon in the upper half of the canyon. It has been cleared and we're starting to see traffic move again, but where traffic is still bogged down and slow is northbound I-15 from Hillfield up to 650 North in Clearfield. Foothill Rug Gallery, direct importers since 1985, get huge savings during their sale now. Up to 70% off direct import pricing. Visit the Foothill location or foothillruggallery.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, our highs will be warmer than normal. Today we're up to 54 degrees already. Predicted high tomorrow, 52. Now the temperature inversion we were expecting really hasn't happened. We'll see clouds and maybe a rain shower on Thursday. And right now, again, 54 degrees, partly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. Sitting in today for Boyd Matheson, I'm Marty Carpenter. I've been sitting alone in this room for like half an hour. It gets so lonely, and thankfully someone has come to visit now. So we've got someone in studio, and not just someone, but a great guest, making a little bit of a splash with some news. Welcome to former legislator, former congressional candidate. I guess you can say congressional in the sense, the Senate candidate and a House candidate, both within about the last year or so. And Becky Edwards, thanks so much for being with us here in the studio. Glad to be here. So, all right, no rest for the weary. Once you run a Senate campaign. Boy, let me get that out. And then you kind of get to take a breath, and the next thing you know, you're running for the House. And now you take a little bit of a breath, and you're right back into it, having launched a political action committee called Governing Group. And just tell us a little bit about, Boyd, did you get any rest in between those? And then what is it you're trying to accomplish here with Governing Group?
Well, Governing Group really is an attempt to answer some of the challenges I saw when I was on the campaign trail over the past couple of years, being around the state and hearing people's stories where they're saying, I actually thought about running for office, but this is a barrier, or I'm concerned about this, or I don't know how to address this. And seeing that there were, and a lot of these individuals who talked to me were women. And I saw that there were some unique challenges there. And so this idea of starting something as a way to help support people who had very good capacity but maybe didn't have the resources they needed, that's been germinating since the Senate campaign. And then now I've got some bandwidth to actually pull it together. So we're launching today. We're excited to have this political action committee that's going to bring resources, not just financial, although that's very helpful, but also manpower. Some of the folks who we affectionately call Team Becky, people that gathered signatures and knocked on doors and held cottage meetings, all the manpower things that really matter as well. And then layer on top of that some one-on-one coaching and mentoring that is so necessary for all aspects, from logistics to answering some of the real challenging questions that people face as candidates.
I've spent a lot of time in the last, decade working on campaigns. Herbert in 12, Herbert in 16. I worked on the Huntsman campaign in 2020. And I've always told people it's a lot like a startup that you know will close at a certain date or one of two potential dates if you've got a primary and then going into the general election. And that is so, I just think that's the best way to describe it is there's so much you've got to suddenly think about. It's everything from how do I get volunteers? How do I staff? Where's the headquarters going to be? How are we going to fund it? Once we fund it, what roles do we put people in? It's so much like starting a small business. It's something else I've done now at this point. I can say they're very similar. That's what I find so interesting is the ability to go in and say, I've done this before, maybe not even just once. I've done this several times because you've run campaigns, successful campaigns when you were in the legislature. How valuable is that to people who are saying, I want to be a candidate, but boy, I don't know how to launch a whole campaign?
Well, I know firsthand how important it is because when I ran for the first time for the Utah House in 2008, I depended on folks in my community who were there for me and said, here's some ideas. And boy, I held on to those ideas and tried my best to do what we could in a very grassroots way in my first election. But lots changed since 2008. Things are more complex. Issues are thornier. They're harder. And I think the political divide has just become more and more challenging. So, yeah, I think we're at a real advantage here of having a team of people who have just done this twice and have a lot of skills and actually invigorated a huge volunteer base across the state who probably for the first time had gotten involved and engaged in politics during those races of mine.
Yeah, you mentioned 2008. If you think back, that's like that campaign was pre-Facebook, right? So what's changed? Well, the type of media that you buy and where you can message and where you can get to people. So, boy, like every industry, things have changed so much, but something that's already chaos in motion like a political campaign, and now it's had that much change over that time. You mentioned money. That money is a big part of it, even when you're just out on your own starting a campaign and you want to help financially with candidates who you think fit into this type of mold that you're trying to support. What are some of your initial fundraising goals for Governing Group? And then how do you best distribute that when it comes to picking candidates that you're ready to support?
Right. So our initial goal is to raise $50,000 that we'll distribute in the 2024 election. And Utah being the way it is, we know that those dollars will be distributed primarily before the primary because that's where a lot of the election happens. So we've got a bold goal. We actually learned a lot during my two previous campaigns, a little bit about fundraising. And in fact, in the congressional race, in just over 12 weeks, we raised over $500,000. The remarkable thing is that 60% of those dollars came from women. That is double the national average for political donations. And I think these campaigns opened up a world for women who already were engaging with their votes, but now engaging with their donations and their voices and their boots on the ground efforts too. So we're going to be looking for candidates who have a track record of engaging in their communities in a collaborative sort of problem-solving way. And those are the people that we want to help support. And we're looking at Republicans and unaffiliated candidates because, as a Republican, I know that world the best. And we're hoping to, in fact, we've had so many people already. I've had half a dozen people reach out just today saying, I'm thinking of running. I need a conversation. I am running. I'm announcing next week. When can I meet with you? What resources can you help me with? So the need is there. And I think our unique positioning is that we're pairing not just dollars, but with this manpower and then the coaching.
You mentioned the volunteers. What's the term that you use for Becky's?
Team Becky.
Team Becky. So you have this group of volunteers, and so much, I think, cycle over cycle in helping to build the bench, so to speak, not just the bench of candidates, but the bench of people who can help run a campaign, is that volunteers have to get a little more responsibility maybe within a campaign, and then on the next campaign they move up. And, it doesn't take you very far, very, very long to go from, hey, I was putting out yard signs and making phone calls for a candidate, and 2 years later, I was running a campaign for someone running for the state house. To what extent does this help you take your group and then say, hey, you've been volunteering and helping my campaigns. Now you're ready for more responsibility. Or you started out putting out yard signs and you became maybe our de facto spokesperson. Now you're ready to be a campaign manager. How much of it is sort of the development of those types of skills within the people who are interested in being supportive?
I love that you mentioned that because that gives me a chance to brag about some people who have been involved on our campaigns. And we're already seeing that. We're already seeing so many folks who have been volunteers or team members, and now they're actually announcing their own runs. So they've seen behind the scenes, and they've kind of debunked a few of the myths and seen, all right, this is something I have capacity to do. And also volunteers. I'm thinking about a woman in Tooele who was wanted to help out with the campaign, but said, I'm really an introvert. I don't want to go anywhere and talk to people. I don't want to hand out stuff. I'll do things online. Well, it wasn't very long before she was pairing up with someone at a parade and doing different things. That woman has found a passion for one-on-one political engagement she never knew happened. And we saw stories like that over and over. So it's building a bench not only of candidates, but of sort of a campaign machine that has really, I think, unleashed a different perspective on what campaigns can and will look like in the future here in Utah.
If people want to find out more, where can they go on the World Wide Web to find out?
World Wide Web, it's governinggroup.com, and we're on all the socials at Governing Group. So we'd love to have people check us out. Of course, we've got a place to donate, but also join us. If you're looking for, like I was, what's next? How can I make, a influence? How can I make a difference here in a state that I love, in a world that I love, political world? Well, it's Governing Group. There's a place for you. We'd love to have you. So check us out, message us, and join us.
The political world is always better when more people are involved. So, Becky, thanks so much for your efforts here, and best of luck to you and Governing Group as you go forward.
Thank you.
All right, Becky Edwards just launched Governing Group. You can go check it out online. And another presidential debate happening later this week. That's what we're going to talk about when we come back, particularly the Republican primary candidates, as the field is shrinking and may still be shrinking. And to what extent does it matter at this point? We'll talk about that when we come back.
As the year winds down, the storylines are ramping up.
Salt Lake City is the preferred host.
Homelessness in Utah has been steadily increasing.
Israel and Hamas are back at war.
It should be a really good snow season across the state.
Keep up with these and the stories still to come. Listen to Tim and Amanda in the morning from 5 to 9, David Dejanovic at 9, and Boyd Matheson at 1. And on your drive home, get breaking updates and Jeff Kaplan's Minute of News from 3 to 7. All day, all season.
We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
Guys, does she need a little escape this year? Introducing Cozy Escape Pajamas from Pajamagram, America's PJ experts. These PJs are just the getaway she needs. So take that time off and plan a holiday staycation. Cozy Escape Pajamas make the perfect gift for your special someone who deserves a little rest and relaxation. Treat her to luxurious next-level cozy signature soft fleece. They're as light as a dream and will keep her oh so warm, like snuggling in her favorite blanket. She'll love to cuddle in Cozy Escape PJs on those extra chilly nights. With Pajamagram, you can even add gift packaging. Order now for guaranteed delivery by Christmas. She's missed out on a lot of things she loves this year, so this Christmas, give her the escape she deserves. These new PJs are selling fast, so order today. Go to pajamagram.com right now. That's pajamagram.com to order Cozy Escape Pajamas. Pajamagram.com.
I'm so stressed about my business not being ready for the holidays.
Uma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending the Uma cloud phone system with auto attendant and more than 35 features.
Uma?
Yep. Switching to Uma is a cinch. Starts at $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Uma.
Now you're feeling it. Visit ooma.com. That's OOMA.com to learn more. Ooma, smart communications for the smarter business.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
At Intermountain Primary Children's Hospital, we made a bold promise to build the nation's model health system for children. Join us in realizing our vision for the future of pediatric care. So together, we can expand primary children's impact and ensure every child has access to the right care at the right place at the right time. For a century, Primary Children's has kept the child first and always. Help us continue to do so for the next 100 years. To get involved, visit primarypromise.org.
Mr. Mac's Buy One, Get One sale. Buy one suit for $2.99. Get the second for $100. Any style, any occasion. Free alterations at 9 locations. Mr. Mac.
Okay, I want you to go along with me here. I want you to imagine a Ruth's Chris Steakhouse steak sitting on a plate in front of you, that 500-degree plate. It is sizzling hot. It is cooked to perfection. I always go for medium, and it comes out just right. And then I want you to imagine that first bite that awaits you at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. There is nothing like it. That first bite is so incredible. And then all the side dishes and the desserts. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse is the place this holiday season for you to take the family, take friends, take your company party. Make your reservations now because you're going to love the experience. And even though they're a steakhouse, they have other great entrees as well. 2 locations, Hotel Park City and right in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City. With all the great things going on, the place to dine is Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
It's KSL's big Christmas gift giveaway. Win a gift card from Dave's Bernia. Dave's Bernia in Provo and St. George has her holiday gift. Win a Forgotten Carols prize pack, including tickets to Michael McLean's Forgotten Carols. Win a gift certificate from Grandpa's Dental, family owned for 70 years. Let the family at Grandpa's Dental take care of yours. Plus, win a holiday gift basket from the Western Nut Company. Give a gift they'll go nuts over from the Western Nut Company. Enter now at KSLNewsRadio.com.
Holiday Stories from Shane Company customers.
My girlfriend thinks we're going to my parents' house to decorate the tree. She has no idea that I'm actually planning to propose. The whole family's in on it, and Shane Company helped me create the perfect ring and stay within my budget. I went with a classic ring with an oval diamond. I tell you, that diamond, I can't wait to see the look on her face.
Shop the largest selection of unique engagement rings in hand-picked diamonds. 'Tis the season to shine. Shane Company. Fine jewelry since 1929.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, could Senator Mike Lee wind up in Trump's cabinet if the former president wins another term? Second, Utah's governor wants to see the legislature put $150 million into helping first-time homebuyers. Third, the presidents of Ivy League colleges are called to testify to a congressional committee about anti-Semitic activity on their campuses. Right now, 54 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. Marty Carpenter sitting in today for Boyd Matheson. We've been unpacking a little bit of the governor's budget, and we've talked with Becky Edwards about a new PAC that she's launched, and now we're going to shift into presidential debates, presidential politics. I don't know. I'm just going to summarize kind of where I've been on this because I think I'm as involved politically as just about anybody can be. I'm certainly over the average in how much I pay attention to this. And the Republican debates, the Republican primary field, I just have had the hardest time like locking in and focusing on it because it sort of feels like it's a done deal and we know who the nominees are going to be, but we're still sort of going through this exercise. And in some cases, it feels a little bit like, well, it's going to be Trump on the Republican side and it's going to be Biden. But just in case something happens and Trump is in jail, then whatever legal thing that may pop up, we're going through this exercise to see who would be a really good nominee. And look, I think Nikki Haley's done a great job of distinguishing herself and pulling herself away from the field generally. But it still just has this general feeling of like, I don't know how much to focus on it because we feel like we've already got the nominees. Now, the Republican field has officially shrunk. This is not someone who was going to be in the debate anyway, but yesterday, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum announced his decision to suspend his presidential campaign. So, the field gets a little bit lower. And as far as we know, for the debate tomorrow, we're planning on it being Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former South Carolina governor, former representative to the United Nations, Nikki Haley. Ramaswamy will be there, and then Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey, to be on the debate stage. I guess there has been some speculation that President Trump may show up. I don't see any reason why he would do that at this point. You're out way ahead of the field. There's no sense to stand up there. I suppose if you feel like you need to step up and deliver some kind of fatal blow, but I would say that has nothing but downside strategically if he were to show up. So you've got this group, and they're going to talk about some of the really important issues that we should be talking about. It's just they're going to do it without the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that makes it feel like, I don't know, like kind of an audition for a job that might not be open anymore. And I think that does like a disservice generally to the party, but it'll be interesting to see, I guess, how it plays out. So let's look back a little bit at the second Republican presidential debate where Doug Burgum was making his case to the American people. As he exits stage, here's what we heard from him.
A kid from a small town that understands, gratitude, humility, hard work, has the courage to stand up and do stuff, who knows how to create jobs. I've been making payroll every 2 weeks since I was in my mid-20s. I understand what it's like as a small business owner. I understand what working people are going through. And we've got the proven track record in North Dakota. We're on track to have the highest GDP in the nation in North Dakota. We've cut taxes. We've reduced red tape. We know how to get government out of people's lives so people can live their lives to their fullest. We know we can improve every American life under a Burgum administration.
So when you start out as the governor of North Dakota, even with a really impressive track record like Doug Burgum has, and then you jump into a presidential race, like everything has to go perfectly for you to really have a chance, because you're not starting with a great base of support. North Dakota is not a very populous state, obviously. You're not a very well-known name nationally, so you can bring that track record with you and say, here's what we've done and here's what we should be doing as a party. It's hard to really get traction. But that doesn't mean you don't have an impact on the overall race, right? You get in, you talk about your issues, you force them to be part of the conversation, you help shape what everyone is talking about. And, I think that's a really important thing as part of the overall process. Just last week on CBS News, Burgum expressed his disappointment with the Republican National Committee and criticized them for narrowing the field instead of letting voters do that.
We made 2 debates, Robert. We're in the first one. We were at the one at the Reagan Library, the second one. And for the third one, we had met the criteria for Iowa, New Hampshire, and the number of donors. We just missed the national criteria by, 0.8%. And so, yeah, we've publicly made our feelings known about this, but they continue to go ahead and feel like somehow it's their responsibility to try to narrow the field. And again, I recommend anybody read the book that was out in the last few years called Let the People Rule, the story of how Teddy Roosevelt got the power out of the party bosses and into the hands of primary voters. That's why we have things like the First in the Nation primary in New Hampshire, which began over 100 years ago, was because it was to actually let the voters are the ones that get to pick presidents to narrow the field, not the pollsters, but we're going backwards with this.
So the debate stage tonight, as I mentioned, is going to be down to 4 individuals. And if you look back to the first run for President Donald Trump, part of the reason I think a lot of people would agree that he ended up as the nominee was sort of a stubborn position by other candidates to not get out of the race when they really couldn't win. And because you had a large field plus Donald Trump, you could never get him into sort of a one-on-one where someone would have a puncher's chance at taking him down as the front runner. That seems to be the conventional wisdom as well right now, even though the field is essentially down to these 4 candidates who we'll see on the debate stage. And now we're hearing that people associated with the Nikki Haley campaign are starting to put some pressure on donors to go put pressure on Chris Christie to step out of the race and get that field down. Seems like that would indicate Nikki Haley thinks my best chance is to get it down to me versus Donald Trump to go ahead and see who the nominee is going to be. We will see, how does this play out so far? Donald Trump skipping the debates has not been any kind of problem for him. Will that continue to be the case? Probably, but we'll see how it plays out. Back with more on Inside Sources right after this.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Utah Governor Spencer Cox has released his yearly budget proposal. Among the hundreds of millions he wants to invest around the state, one of the biggest areas is in building new homes.
Governor Cox says the cost of owning a home is the single greatest threat to the future prosperity of Utah.
I believe this is an existential threat, not just to the American dream, but to our way of life.
To help combat the problem, the governor wants to invest $150 million in specifically building new starter homes. Most of that money would help combat the cost of infrastructure needed for new developments like water, sewer, and roads. The goal is to have 35,000 new starter homes up by 2028.
That's KSL News Radio's Adam Small. The governor also wants to invest into things like Utah's watersheds and transportation, and also wants to put about $170 million into projects in rural Utah. Now, the governor's budget proposal sets aside well over $100 million to fund programs to help the homeless population. Scott Howell with Solutions Utah tells David Dujanovic he's glad to see the state, Salt Lake City, and Salt Lake County working together, and he hopes the legislature also gets on board.
Being a former lawmaker, when you get the governor's budget, a lot of my colleagues would put it right in the shredder and said, no, we're in charge. But I think Governor Cox really wants to have a collaborative working relationship.
Howell says accountability with more funding is also important. He says we should see monthly reports of how service providers are helping people get off the streets. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Senator Tommy Tuberville is announcing he's lifting his holds on military promotions under 4 stars. The move clears the way for confirmation of hundreds of stalled appointments all at once. More from ABC's Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill.
It's been months of Tuberville holding up these promotions, which are really, in many cases, rank-and-file members of the military, but also some significant commanders as well. About 400 nominees are going to go through, but some of the top-tier commanders, 4-star and up, they will not be let to go to a confirmation by Tuberville, holding up these nominees over objections to the Pentagon's abortion policy.
And your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down still 79 points on the day. The NASDAQ is up about 44 points. And our KSL weather, warmer than we expected. That's next. KSL News on 202.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Spend less time at the post office. With Formax and Mint mailing systems from Les Olson IT, you can quickly, accurately, and easily process your outgoing mail and even save on postage. Fold your documents, stuff and seal your envelopes, print addresses, weigh and measure to apply proper postage, all with the click of a button. With multiple model options available, you're sure to find a Formax solution and Mint mailing device that perfectly fits your business needs.
Les Olson IT.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
Drivers, be aware we have two freeways currently experiencing unusually heavy delays. The first is the 21st South Freeway going eastbound, where we have debris in the road blocking right lanes of travel right as you're as you're passing Bangerter Highway. But the delays are almost back to 5600 West, and then northbound I-15 road work and an earlier accident still tying up traffic as you go from Layton through Clearfield. Peterson Art Center. Give the gift of creativity with a gift certificate good for any art or pottery class. It's the perfect gift for spouses, kids, friends, and seniors. The Peterson Art Center in Sugar House. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, we've got a high of 51 predicted today, but 55 degrees right now. And the temperature inversion we were expecting just hasn't shown up. We'll see clouds, maybe a rain shower by Thursday. Right now, again, 55 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Marty Carpenter is sitting in today for Boyd Matheson, who is out for the day and, probably getting a little holiday shopping done, something like that. I hope he's buying me something nice for sitting in today. I got a long list. You can go check it out on Amazon if you want, Boyd. All right, let's get back into the news and the mix of things going on. It's been really interesting to watch the debate over free speech re-spark in our country, particularly since the war in Israel broke out. A lot of discussion and debate around free speech, particularly on college campuses. And I think there's been, at least for a large part of the country, a little bit of just, maybe dismay on how college campuses are run across the country, what the focus is there, and what kind of things take place on college campuses, especially when it comes to free speech issues. And I think it goes both ways. This goes from something related to the conflict, the war in Israel, and free speech that can be anti-Semitic, and also on the other side, in times predating the war in Israel, where groups would try to shut down speakers who would come to speak on campus who were of a political persuasion that was not their own, and would try to stifle free speech. The Utah Board of Higher Education actually recently passed a resolution calling for neutrality on college campuses in our state. So that means that the university itself limited in what kind of positions it can take, but still allowing for student groups to go take positions on issues that may be controversial, may just be them expressing and exercising their First Amendment rights. Today, Congress is grilling university presidents on anti-Semitism. The U.S. House passed 2 amendments to take away federal funding from colleges who give a platform to anti-Semitism. That, of course, is not law at this point. Those are amendments to bills that are in progress. And all of it really brings up an age-old question. What are the limits on free speech? Should there be limits on what some might call bad or terrible or ugly or hate speech that promotes or condones things like anti-Semitism? Should that be protected, and should it be protected even on college campuses? We're joined now by J.D. Tuchili, who is a contributing editor at Reason.com. J.D., thanks for taking some time to share your perspective on this. You begin your piece that you wrote recently talking about an amendment to the U.S. House that the U.S. House passed as part of this appropriations bill to combat anti-Semitism on college campuses. But your argument is that it goes too far to the authoritarian side of things. Just give us the rundown on your position on this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that a lot of us have been baffled by what's going on at college campuses in recent years, and in particular, since the October 7th terrorist attack by Hamas on Israel. We've been horrified to see that a fair number of college students actually support Hamas in some cases and endorse the terrorism and are willing to take explicitly anti-Semitic stances. But there's a difference between criticizing that, being horrified by it, calling it out. There's a difference between doing that on the one hand and between using state action to punish people for doing that on the other. And there's an amendment to a higher education bill that was put forward by a New York Congressman, Mike Lawler, which would deny funds to college campuses that provide platforms for anti-Semitic hate, anti-Semitism. And it uses an international definition of anti-Semitism set by a group based in Germany. And the problem is that when the state gets involved, it's explicitly, and when the state gets involved in punishing speech, even if it's horrifying speech, even if it's contemptible speech, that's censorship. And that's why the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression called out this amendment, this bill specifically, and said that it just goes too far. The state cannot take action here. The First Amendment is specifically meant to protect speech that offends somebody. If it didn't offend somebody, it wouldn't need protection. And this measure goes too far in penalizing speech that we might recognize as being contemptible, being horrible, being offensive, but that the state has no right to punish.
So it's essentially a free market versus government control kind of an argument, right? That you don't want the government to control the speech, but the free market and how people react to that speech, not that they can react in a way that physically hurts someone, but whether or not they accept and endorse the ideas that someone is expressing, that's sort of the free market approach of it's not the government controlling it, it's the market, people who are listening to it saying, I don't buy into what you're saying, but I appreciate your right to say it.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the speech doesn't cross over into explicit conduct, action, violence, attacking somebody, and it has on a couple of occasions, that can be punished. That can be targeted as harassment or violence or assault. But if someone is just saying something that's really despicable, they have the right to say something that's despicable. And here's another thing. When we recognize their speech rights, not only do we protect our speech rights in the future, because we may offend others when we take a position at some point, during some other debate to come, but when we respect their speech rights, we let people put themselves on display. We know where they stand. I've got a kid in college right now, and they had a protest on campus there that crossed over into endorsement of what Hamas had done. And he didn't have to wonder who it was who endorsed that kind of point of view, because there they were on display to be seen. Fortunately, he didn't recognize many of the faces there. But if you suppress the speech, you don't suppress the ideas. I mean, they're still there thinking hateful thoughts and thinking that much more justified because the state took action against them and tried to censor them. Whereas if you respect their speech rights, you protect your own speech rights in the future, but you also let the hateful people put themselves out on display to express themselves peacefully and to let us know who they are without us having to wonder.
And the flip side of that is then that your speech is protected and that the government can't shut it down, but you're not necessarily protected from the consequences of that speech. We saw this with some groups at universities who signed on in support of either Hamas or Palestinians or however that might have broken down. And then they were essentially kind of publicly shamed by a group that went and, put up the faces of people who had signed on to this letter somewhere. How does that kind of fit into the overall thinking?
Well, I mean, honestly, that's free association, isn't it? That's also a protected First Amendment right. When my son dropped by that protest on his campus, he wanted to see if there's anybody on campus he wanted to avoid. My wife is Jewish. That means he's part Jewish. And he takes offense at what they're saying. They have the right to say it, but he wants to know in the future who to avoid. And that's the same with employers and people in the public, Jewish groups, who can look at these protests and see that these are people that they want to avoid in the future because they may be hateful. They may be problematic employees. They might not want to hire them, when they graduate from college. There are consequences. There are free association consequences to expressing yourself and to offending other people. But the state can't take action, because when it does, then it's engaging in censorship. It's violating First Amendment rights. It's threatening our personal expressive rights in the future, because we will undoubtedly offend somebody on our own part during another debate to come. And it also suppresses speech without suppressing those ideas. They're still going to be there.
It gets really tricky when government gets involved. I can stand with you on that for sure. But what are some better methods that we can use when legal or legislative measures are not the best way to fight against hateful rhetoric? What are the better methods that we can use, or what's been used in the past in our country? And I've got about 1 minute.
Speak out. Tell people what you believe, what you think the truth of the matter actually is, why those people expressing hateful views are so wrong. Call them out. Put their faces up. If you find them that offensive, don't hire them in the future. Don't associate with them. There are things we can do that are peaceful, that involve our own expressive rights and our own association rights, that you can do in a free society that don't involve evoking the authoritarian power of the state. That's what we can do, and that's what's appropriate.
We appreciate you sharing your perspective on this. J.D. Tuccilli, contributing editor at Reason.com. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, coming up, how well is Utah doing at retaining teachers, making sure we have teachers in the classrooms? We'll look at a new report on Utah's teacher workforce landscape after the break.
The biggest financial decision you'll ever make.
I've always felt like my kids will own a home.
And it's trickier than ever.
Insurance, PMI, don't even get me started on home repairs.
If you're buying or selling a home, Dave and Debbie have you covered. The 2024 housing market. Each morning this week at 10:20 on KSL News Radio.
You can't expect a policeman to unclog your drain. You shouldn't ask a teacher to change your oil. And you wouldn't want a fireman to clean your teeth. So why would we let politicians take over our internet service? That's just not what they do. Experience proves government-run networks mean waste, corruption, and failure. One example, called Utopia, promised to provide internet service in 16 cities within a few years. But over 20 years and hundreds of millions of dollars later, a better name would be dystopia. They say it's almost complete. We say stop wasting our money. Go to nogovinternet.com and tell lawmakers enough is enough. Local tax dollars are precious, and public employees have plenty to do already. Don't let politicians mess with our internet. Paid for by nogovinternet.com, a project of Domestic Policy Caucus.
Bill Riley here with University of Utah head football coach Kyle Whittingham. Now tell me, Coach Whitt, what's your philosophy on a winning team?
I believe the key to winning is a strong offensive line. When the linemen do their job, nothing gets through to the quarterback, so he can do his job.
Well, what happens if the linemen don't do their job?
Ouch. You know, Bill, I recently learned that kidneys work like linemen for your body. When your kidneys work, they block poisons and chemicals from your blood.
Coach, I've heard that 1 in 9 Americans have some form of kidney disease. What can we do to fight back?
Join me, Coach Kyle Whittingham, and be part of the winning team against kidney disease. Donate your used car or truck to the Kidney Foundation. Your car will be towed for free, and you'll get a receipt for a tax deduction. Tell them how to do that, Bill.
Donate your car to the Kidney Foundation today and make your car a kidney car. Cars to save lives. Call 1-800-TOW-CARS. That's TOW CARS. Cars with a K. 1-800-TOW-CAR.
Every year, the National Kidney Foundation helps individuals and families affected by kidney disease. Help them out by making your car a kidney car. Call 1-800-TOW-CARS.
In Salt Lake City, we are taking a stand against hate.
We take a stand against bias,
bigotry, prejudice,
violence, intimidation,
and hate of any kind.
We are speaking up in support of reporting acts of hatred.
So that no one
is the victim of hate.
Because we are all Salt Lakers.
Because we are all Salt Lakers.
And taking a stand is what we do.
Report hate crimes.
For a crime in progress, call 911.
Advanced Window Products is having their biggest sale of the year. If your old windows let the winter cold seep in, now's the time to get the highest quality double-pane windows and custom insulated frames. Advanced Window Products is a local company that crafts beautiful precision frames right here in Salt Lake City for 37 years. And the magic is, they cut out the middleman. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. So you save on the highest quality windows and frames. Any style, any color, any questions? Yes, financing. They offer 60-month, 0% financing. They'll even let you put off the first payment up to 2 years, and while that's tempting to think about, the reason to call them right now is the biggest sale of the year. This month only, when they do your entire home of 10 windows or more, you get $3,500 off plus a free premium glass upgrade. So call Advanced Window Products right now, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or advancedwindowsusa.com.
See the high-flying dunks, show-stopping blocks, and crowd-silencing threes at Delta Center this season. With an action-packed schedule, it's easy to get to a Jazz game. Pick out an unmissable matchup, or just a tip-off time that works for you. It's time to put on your Jazz gear and head to the game. Come with a friend, a loved one, or as a group. See all available tickets and options at UtahJazz.com or call or text 801-355-DUNK.
Join Mike Stevens of Capital Wealth Advisors for Retire Right Radio, Saturdays at 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. That's Retire Right Radio with Mike Stevens, Saturdays at 5 a.m. and 9 p.m.
The semi-annual sale is underway at Foothill Oriental Rugs. Jim Weber is with me, and every time I come into the store, you have such a great variety for people to choose from.
I think the thing that differentiates us from most rug stores in the country, Maria, is that I'm a direct importer, and I've been doing this for 38 years. So every rug in my store is imported directly by us, and that results in you having a unique selection when you come in, and my prices are 25% below the industry average.
Yeah, but this is a chance for folks to come in and get some great deals for the holidays.
If you've ever needed a rug, this is a great time to come in and look at rugs because, like I say, our retail prices are better than the industry and average, and right now they're marked down up to 70% off. We've got a 9x12 Tibetan contemporary rug. Retail price $77.76. It's on sale for $38.88. We got a 6x9 Indian sumac. Retail price $1,092. It's on sale for $328. It's a great time to put a rug in your home. People want their home to look right for the holidays.
Don't miss out. The semi-annual sale is underway now at Foothill Oriental Rugs, 1460 South Foothill Drive, just south of Foothill Village.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, helping first-time home buyers is one of Governor Cox's top priorities in the budget he released today. Second, the governor's proposal to aid the homeless is also winning praise from advocates. And third, hundreds of military promotions that could have been held up for months in the U.S. Senate could win approval now that Senator Tommy Tuberville is no longer blocking them. Right now, 55 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Boyd taking some well-deserved time off today. I'm Marty Carpenter, sitting in the big chair with a big microphone and talking about all the big things going on across our state today. And now it's time for some relatively good news. We always like that, right? The Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute at the University of Utah released a new report today looking at the current landscape of Utah's K-12 teacher workforce. And Utah is doing better than most states when it comes to retaining teachers and preventing shortages. However, there are still some warning signs we need to be aware of. So let's dig in on the data with a person who gathered and analyzed and wrote the report on all the data. That's Andrea Brandley from the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute. Andrea, thanks so much for spending some time with us today.
Of course. Happy to be here.
All right. What are the main takeaways from the report? Sounds like we're holding on to teachers better than most people would think.
Yeah. I think there was obviously a lot of justified concern, particularly with the COVID pandemic and the impact it had on the education system. But when we look at the data, we actually see that in Utah, teacher vacancies remain low, teacher retention remains high, and Utah's average teacher salary is very comparable to the national average. So really, Utah's ranking relatively well on many of the metrics that we look at when we think about teacher shortages, teacher retention, and teacher salaries.
So I think that's one thing, if I heard you right, that would jump out to me there is on the compensation side. I know the legislature has been focusing on this for the last several years trying to get that compensation up. Last year, the governor and the legislature worked together to make a fairly substantial increase in teacher pay for starting teachers in particular. So are we about where the rest of the country is, and how exactly do you measure that? Is it just straight dollars for dollars, or does that adjust for cost of living in different parts of the country?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I went ahead and looked at average salary across states, and I did do a cost of living adjustment. And based on, average salary across states, adjusting for cost of living, Utah is very near the national average. It ranks about halfway, but this is actually from data that's a couple years ago, which is the most recent. So with the pay raise that Utah teachers received this year, we may even see Utah's ranking go even higher in coming years. And then I also did look at teacher starting salary, and after adjusting for cost of living, Utah ranked second for having the second highest starting teacher salary in the nation. So I think that was a surprise to a lot of people that Utah's actually showing pretty well when it comes to comparing to other states. There are, of course, other ways to compare teacher salaries, and they still don't make as much as other occupations with a bachelor's degree. But when it comes to teacher salary comparisons, Utah ranks quite well across the nation. Yeah, I think that's really interesting because, like I said, the legislature, the governor, they've put a whole lot of emphasis on getting us up to where we need to be. But I think it's going to take a lot, not just in terms of investment. I think that's been there, but it's going to take a lot of time for people to kind of go and get that talking point out of their head that we don't spend as much on education as other states. And this is, of course, talking about one aspect of it, spending it on teacher compensation. I'm wondering, though, as you look at other states and compare Utah with other states, what are the kind of things that we can learn from other states about what works and what doesn't work when it comes to teacher retention? And what are some of the ideas that we've maybe already borrowed from other states that have helped us get to this type of ranking? Sure. Yeah. So like I said, Utah ranks really well when it comes to teacher retention based on the available data. Some of the things that other states do and that Utah has started to do as well are things like grow your own programs. So teachers or maybe paraprofessionals who are already in schools, finding ways to help them become professionally qualified and then join the teacher workforce has been really successful in growing the teacher workforce, and then really just trying to give early career teachers the support that they need as they are just entering the profession and learning the ropes, making sure that they have, mentors and all of the resources that are needed. Those are things that have been done in other states and that Utah has been working on as well that seem to be very helpful in teacher retention. What are the warning signs we still need to be aware of? Yeah, so when we think about warning signs, there's a few that kind of come to mind. The first is just that we do have lower retention rates among our early career teachers and our underqualified teachers. And underqualified just means that they don't yet have a professional license or all their professional endorsements. Many of our teachers are in the process of working on that. So that kind of speaks to what I just talked about, is really focusing on teachers early in their careers and those who have not yet received their full qualifications and providing them the support to do so, since that's where those lower retention rates are. Another warning sign is just that Utah does rank as having the highest student-teacher ratio. And this can put pressure on schools, when it comes to teacher vacancies. If there's a position that can't be filled and you already have large class sizes, then it becomes difficult to spread students out or to make up for that missing teacher. So that's one thing to consider. And then just there are some teacher shortages that are just worse in certain subject areas, particularly in special education and math. And the state is already doing some great work here and providing some additional compensation for teachers in those certain subject areas, but that's just one of the warning signs as well. So those are, I think, the things we should maybe be keeping an eye on. Yeah, we talk a lot about like what government can do or what educators can do, like education administration, what they can do. Is there anything that parents need to keep in mind as they are part of this effort to keep good teachers in the schools where their kids are attending school? What can parents do? Yeah, that's a great question. I think the data is less clear on this. It's not something that we can easily point out. But I always think that it's helpful to just be supportive of teachers and schools in whatever way that we can. We have more than 30,000 teachers in the state who, of course, play a very critical role in supporting the development of our many children. And I think anything that you can do to show your support to your kids' teachers or the teachers in your neighborhood school, I think can go a long way in helping them know that they're valued and may even help with retention as well. Who knows?
How frequently do we do a study like this? Like, you're dealing with some data that's a little bit older, you mentioned, because it doesn't necessarily incorporate the new pay raises that came for teachers. Is this something you do every year, every couple of years? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. This is the first time that I have done it, so I guess that is yet to be seen, but I think it's definitely worth looking at least every year or two. The Utah State Board of Education does a really great job at releasing data generally on an annual basis. So as much as every year we could continue to look and see how these metrics change and hopefully see patterns of improvement or patterns of areas that we need to continue to work on as we move forward.
All right. Andrea Brandley is a senior education analyst at the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute at the University of Utah. Andrea, thanks so much for spending some time with us today and giving us some insight on your study.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Coming up, students are struggling in math. We go from we got enough teachers, but now we got to get math scores up. Students are struggling across the country in math, especially since the pandemic. And it's a problem that's got a trend line going the wrong direction. We're going to look at that when we come back on Inside Sources.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. A lawsuit has been filed aimed at delaying UDOT's proposed gondola in Little Cottonwood Canyon. The 8-mile-long project aimed at reducing traffic in one of the busiest ski canyons, but some detractors say this is not the right solution.
I think that UDOT has rushed this decision.
What would we do if there was a failure or a gondola that was stopped or broken down?
It would be a shame to commercialize it.
I'd be happy to have to take the bus.
The case is intended to delay the implementation of the gondola project and expand what they say are much less damaging alternatives like a bus system or even installing toll booths. A Riverdale neighborhood rallying around a Denny's worker who was hit by a truck. Tori Tibbetts and her little brother were crossing in a crosswalk when they were hit by a driver who didn't see them. Amanda Neely is Tori's mom. She tells KSL-TV Tori threw her brother out of the way before she was hit.
My son wasn't hit because of Victoria. She literally saved his life.
Tori's in the hospital in a medically induced coma. The Riverdale Denny's, where Tori works, is hosting a fundraiser on Sunday. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Senate Democrats say they'll let Republicans offer an amendment to add border security to a bill that was meant to fund Ukraine and Israeli military operations, but there's a catch. ABC's Andy Field has details from Washington.
Republicans want border security written into the Israeli and Ukrainian funding bill. Senate Democrats don't like the language, so Democratic leader Chuck Schumer has offered to let them vote on a border spending amendment, which is not likely to pass.
It will need 60 votes, like any amendment would.
Republicans insisting on baking in the border spending to force Democrats to say yes as they approve the other foreign aid. Andy Field, ABC News, Washington.
Your money at this moment, trading done for the day with the Dow Jones average down 79 points today. The NASDAQ ended the day up 44 points. The S&P 500 was down about 2 points. And our KSL weather looks like we've got a warmer picture than we were anticipating. That's next. KSL News Time 2:32.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
This is Jeff Stout with Fink & McGregor, Mortgages Made Simple. Over the years, I have seen a lot of down payment assistance programs. Most of them just aren't practical for one reason or another, but we have one now that is pretty solid. This program is for first-time home buyers or some buyers who have been out of the market for several years. It includes a gift of up to $4,000 to help with the down payment. Given that this program only calls for a 3% down payment in the first place, this gift can be a real game changer. Some restrictions apply. One restriction is that the household income cannot be over a certain amount, which for most areas along the Wasatch Front is around $85,000 annual income. Call us today if you want to take a look. Fink and McGregor, Mortgages Made Simple, 801-264-9494. That's 264-9494. Or on the web at finkmcgregor.com. NMLS 289115.
Introducing Yes, heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Maximize your energy savings with a new energy-efficient heating and cooling system from Yes, and you could save up to $4,500 through possible tax credits and other discounts. Purchase a new system today, and Yes will buy back your old inefficient HVAC system. Visit theyesmancan.com to schedule your appointment. Call now or visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
At Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals, we're honored to carry the legacy of our namesake and to extend the legacy of care in our communities. We're part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
With our roots in northern Utah, Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals have a legacy of caring to help every person be whole and healthy. We're part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
Crews have been making progress on the debris on the road eastbound on the 21st South Freeway, about 3200 west, so just after Bangerter Highway. Now, they still have a right lane and shoulder blocked, but those earlier delays are clearing out. And then we still have the slow and go speeds northbound I-15, Layton into Clearfield. We're on northbound I-15 at 650 North in Clearfield. We do have the right lane blocked due to road work. Gillette Heating and Air is offering furnace maintenance for 30% off. Call 385-GET-HEAT today to take advantage of this limited time offer. Carrier, turn to the experts. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, we got a surprise high today. It's 55 degrees right now, where the predicted high was 51. We could see something like that again tomorrow. Then clouds and maybe a rain shower on Thursday. 55 degrees, partly cloudy right now. I'm Dan Bonas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. Marty Carpenter sitting in today for Boyd Matheson. It's been a day where we've been talking a lot about the governor's budget, a lot of things going on in the political world, and we started to touch a little bit on some of what's going on in schools, on campuses when it comes to free speech, in our classrooms when it comes to retaining teachers. And now there's this new study out, the new numbers are out, I guess is the best way to say it, showing how we're doing as a country when it comes to math, in particular, our performance in our schools. Math scores for U.S. students have plunged 13 points lower than they were at when we were looking at pre-pandemic levels. The loss of learning is what some are saying is just another sign that students have not recovered from the school closures of 2020. And is there anything that we learned from that? And like, what is it going to take for us to get back where we need to be in math? Now, let's start here. Let's go ahead with a confession. I'm not a math guy. I am sitting here talking on the radio, and I have worked on in political circles on the communication side. I'm a letters guy, not a numbers guy. And I actually was kind of a numbers guy until they put letters in with the numbers, and algebra is where it kind of started to go off the rails for me. So I have a built-in bias sort of where I'm not a math guy. But I understand the importance of having people who are really good at math. I get why that's important. I also know from my time working in political and policy communication that statistics can sometimes be misleading, or at least not what they look like right off the bat. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case here. But if overall our math scores have gone down, I wonder what the separation is within that group. Are the kids who are good at math still really good at math? And the kids who aren't naturally good at math, not as good at math, or worse at math than they were, and that's what's pulling the average down? Or is everyone across the board kind of worse at it? So let's dive into the numbers a little bit, and let's bring in someone who is probably more of a math person. That's not a high bar to clear. Derek Dennis is joining us now to talk about these U.S. student math scores, which have hit an all-time low. Derek is a New York City-based ABC correspondent. So, Derek, maybe you're not more of a numbers guy than I am, but let's start here. It seems from these results that global math scores have declined, not just here in America, but they're global. This is a problem across the world. Are there common denominators that we can extract from the fact that this is maybe not just an American problem?
Well, you say it's not an American problem, and it's true. Overall, globally, internationally, math scores have gone down, and they're looking at this post-pandemic. But in this assessment called the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, they're finding that the U.S. is far behind other countries. Even with an overall drop, the U.S. is far behind other countries in terms of basic math performance, and that's a problem that's gotten the attention of the federal government.
How do we define what basic math performance is? That multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, and that's it, or does it extend beyond that? Like, what does that mean when you say basic math? What are we measuring?
No, it's just exactly what you described, just the basics here, the simple arithmetic, not getting into a more advanced math, trigonometry or calculus, but just the basic stuff that students need to get by on, to live on when they become adults. And that's a problem if they are falling behind in those areas. It means that they don't have the skills that are needed, especially when they compare themselves to students in other countries like the UK, Germany, even more advanced countries like Singapore that really tend to hone in on math skills as a focus for young students in grade schools.
I brought this up just before we brought you on. I'm kind of wondering about inside the numbers on this. So if you take all of the American students across the board who were measured and are saying we're not performing as well in math, in basic math, as we did pre-pandemic, I wonder, are the kids who are within that group, are there still a section of that that's really good at math and those who aren't good are getting worse? Or is it like within that whole group, is everybody not as good at it? Are the good still pretty good at it and we're just not as many kids who are good at math? Or is it the overall everybody's coming down? Or is that just impossible to tell from the study?
They didn't break it down in that way, but I will tell you that it's not a huge sampling. Only about 700,000 students across the globe were examined in this study. And so that's just a fraction of the populations that we're talking about here. But one of the key takeaways that I think that might get at what you're saying is that besides the U.S., there are other countries around the world that really tend to focus on math skills, teaching it as a skill, something that can be learned by every student. Whereas in the U.S., the researchers behind these test scores say that students tend to see math as a talent, something that they either have or they don't have. And that's a fundamental difference. Teaching kids that they can and will learn math, that they have the capacity to do it, seems to make a difference in other countries, whereas in the U.S., treating it as a talent, something that kids either have or they don't have, really disproportionately affects students, and especially lower income students, according to the researchers.
I think back to my own kids going through elementary school when they were learning the basic math. And here in Utah, we had sort of a transition from what old people like myself would say was like regular math to more of an integrated math, where it wasn't necessarily like when I went to school and you took Algebra 1 in 7th grade, Algebra 2 in 8th grade, and then you went on to geometry, that it's all sort of mixed together as you go through the grades. I don't know how something like that may play into this, or are there any other policy proposals or plans to address the issue? Have we figured out what's going wrong, and do we have sort of a game plan to fix it, I suppose, is the question.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. Department of Education, the Secretary of Education, really came out sort of celebrating part of this study, in that the good news here is that U.S. students are doing very well in reading and science. But he acknowledged that students have a long way to go in terms of math scores, and he wants not only more funding for schools, for the federal government, but also a real focus from teachers to parents to after-school activities, to be really focused on getting students to learn math as a way where they can, excel at it in a real meaningful way that doesn't take away from the gains that they're seeing in reading and science. They say there has to be a leveling out where every student is up to par in all of these categories to really be competitive globally.
All right, I'll get you out of here on this. The question, I suppose, is we've talked about this. We've set it up with the parameter of it's not at pre-pandemic levels today compared to where it was, obviously, before the pandemic. So how closely linked are these score declines to school closures during the pandemic? Is that what everyone's just decided is the problem, and is that what the data shows?
Well, it's interesting. You bring up the pandemic. This is the first set of test results that we've gotten since the pandemic. There were some years that were taken off because the students just weren't being assessed in the traditional way during the pandemic years. And so the scientists behind it are really cautioning that, as we get further and further away from the pandemic and then more assessments are done next year and the year after, we might see a bouncing back of these numbers, better numbers ahead to come versus the ones right after the pandemic when students are being assessed after dealing with, remote learning and the like. And so there is some leeway there and some question about whether the numbers could be skewed because of the pandemic. And so they're taking a wait-and-see approach. They want to see what the test results bear out next year and the year after.
Derek, thanks very much for your insight on this. We really appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Derek Dennis is a New York City-based ABC correspondent. And coming up, this Christmas season, what financial principles should we remember and apply to give our families and communities a great Christmas while not breaking our bank accounts? We're going to talk about that when we come back.
Home for the holidays? Sounds nice, doesn't it? What if your home excluded summer yard work and was a one-level luxurious townhome with spacious rooms? Sounds even better. Preview your new home for the holidays at an open house December 18th at Nilsson Homes' newest single-level luxury townhome in Bluffview. These homes are move-in ready, no yard work, snow blowing, and close to what you love and enjoy with easy commutes. Experience the Nilsson Homes difference of what spacious single-level townhome floor plans and no stairs looks like. Nilsson Homes has been building across the Wasatch Front for over 45 years, accommodating all the things you need combined with the things you love. Ask about end-of-year promotional savings. Experience your new home for the holidays at their open house event December 18th, 5 to 7 p.m. Pictures with Santa and warm churros at the newest Nilsson Community, 227 North, 3830 West Point. Visit Nilsson Homes Communities at nilssonhomes.com, Nilson homes.com.
If cabinets were a football team, Euromax cabinets would be the 1985 Bears, maybe the 1984 Niners. If cabinets were a basketball team, Euromax would be the 95-96 Bulls, maybe the 2016-2017 Warriors. If cabinets were a singer, Euromax cabinets would be Neil Diamond, rhinestones, sequins, and all. In fact, Neil Diamond was probably thinking about Euromax cabinets when he wrote and recorded Sweet Caroline. Max and Mike came together to start a cabinet company that brings the unique flair and style of Europe while keeping the craftsmanship and installation of America. Max moved here from Ukraine with years of European style, while Mike has 25 years of cabinet experience here in Utah. This is Hans Olsen, letting you know their service, style, and warranties are unmatched. They can help you design a kitchen to be the talk of the neighborhood. Their showroom's in Pleasant Grove, and you can see their world-class design by going to EuromaxFurniture.com. That's EuromaxFurniture.com.
Do you know how to tell if a clogged drain is something to worry about or not? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and I understand it's annoying and inconvenient, but sometimes a clogged drain can be a sign there's a more serious issue with your sewer main line. If the drains in the lowest level of your home aren't draining, or you flush a toilet and it comes up somewhere else like a shower or a floor drain, I'm urging you to look at this as more than just an annoyance. The last thing I want you to experience is a sewer backup. If you're a homeowner experiencing any of these issues, the first step would be to snake the line to see if it's just a blockage, which one of our drain techs can do for only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Any Hour Services will snake any drain line with normal access for only $29. Sinks, showers, tubs, toilets, floor drains, laundry drains, even that sewer main line that connects to the city. We'll snake any line for just $29. For help with your drain issues, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7700. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Guys, your promise is your word, right? You stick by it, you live by it. So does Revive Men's Health with our Revive Promise for low T and ED. The Revive Promise means your tests and lab work are free when you begin treatment, and our low T and ED treatments are money back guaranteed. Yes, that's right. We stand behind our treatments and our results. That's our promise to you. Revive Men's Health has successfully helped thousands of men with low T, ED, and sexual health issues since 2011. If you're experiencing symptoms like chronic low energy, less drive, sleep issues, weight gain, poor performance, bad moods, or ED, you need Revive. Don't settle. Get affordable, guaranteed custom low T and ED solutions with lasting results from Salt Lake City's favorite men's clinic. And remember, there are no extra bills when you begin treatment. All labs and tests are free, and your low T and ED treatments are money-back guaranteed. Call Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City today to schedule your appointment. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
If you've been trying to get into that holiday dress you wore a few years ago and you can't get it zipped because you've gained some weight, boy, have I been there and done that. I can remember there was a time when I had 4 or 5 different sizes in my closet, and I think, are these the pants that fit me? Are these the pants that fit me? And then I'd have to find a sweater that was long enough to go over. And now, since I've lost this 34 pounds on Soda weight loss, my day is easier. I have, for the first time in my adult life, one size in my closet. You have no idea how much joy that gives me. People, you've got to check out Soda weight loss.
And here's the thing. This will be the last time you ever go through this process, because they have the same goal that you do, not just to lose the weight now, but to keep that weight off. We've told you the average man loses 3 to 5 pounds a week, the average female 2 to 3 pounds a week. They can help you too, and set your goals for the new year 2024 that is right around the corner. Reach out to them at SodaWeightLoss.com, spelled S-O-T-A. Think Tim and Amanda. It is state-of-the-art.
Positive mortgage news? Interest rates have dropped and trending down from 2023 yearly highs. Click LoansByRick.com. Purchase or cashback loans. Visit LoansByRick.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, critics of a proposed gondola in Little Cottonwood Canyon have filed a lawsuit to stop it. Second, the Denny's restaurant in Riverdale is trying to help one of its employees who was hit by a truck and who saved her little brother. Third, Republicans in Congress are demanding the president address border security before they vote for additional aid for Ukraine and Israel. Right now, 55 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
And down the stretch we come. Final segment here on Inside Sources. Marty Carpenter sitting in today for Boyd Matheson. And, the holidays are upon us. Everybody's out feeling a little more festive, a little more, generous, hopefully, as we think back with the Thanksgiving season just behind us and into the Christmas part of the holidays, thinking about things that we're grateful for, how much we have, and how blessed we are, and how we can share that with others who either just need a little reason to celebrate, a little reason to cheer up, or some who may not be as fortunate as we are. And, as we get into that topic, there's a new survey from Bankrate that found that despite inflation, which has certainly been a problem for the last couple of years, and the higher prices that come from it, Americans are actually planning to increase their tips this holiday season. And I don't know if that's necessarily that they're increasing them over what they would have increased them last year, if it's sort of a year-over thing, or just, hey, I'm tipping more in December than I would have in August because I'm feeling a little bit more festive. Maybe it's part of the holiday overspending trend that we're seeing this season. And what should we keep in mind this holiday season so we stay within our budgets while we're also trying to be generous? Shane Stewart is here in studio with us. He is a DMBA financial advisor and a longtime guest voice. You've heard him here on this show before and across the dial here with KSL. So, Shane, first of all, thanks for being generous with your time and coming in to spend some time with us and give us some tips.
Thanks.
There's your nice segue.
Glad to be here. Yeah.
All right, so let's start here. Why do you think Americans will be tipping more and spending more this Christmas, even when everyone's facing that inflationary cost of everything that we're buying?
Yeah, I think you hit a couple of things. One is that they're feeling generous this time of year. It's natural to feel generous. The job market is still very tight, meaning everyone, well, almost everyone that wants to be is employed, and so they're feeling like consumer sentiment, meaning I feel like I have the money, I can share that. It's a great combination to feel generous this time of year and feel like you have the money. That's probably why tipping's going up.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the mistakes people can make when they get into Christmas time? And like generosity is a good thing, but so is a budget, and you've got to kind of find the balance between those two.
Yeah, and the key there is to really go on fact rather than feeling. And what I mean by that is know what you have to spend. Feeling's great. Feeling generous as an example, that's a feeling, and that's fantastic. But you got to combine that with some fact to know really what do you have to spend. And not a lot of us in America do that. We don't really know exactly what we have to spend. And so having a spending plan, aka budget, formerly known as budget, having a plan, some sort of plan that, okay, what's the limit that we're going to spend this year, including tips, including being generous, that kind of thing. And I'm all for generosity. I think that's a great thing as long as, like you said, it's kept within the bounds that you have available to you, because then you might be on the other end next year if you've given away too much.
Yeah. I've been on this show before when we've brought up the subject of tip fatigue. And it seems like everywhere you go now, someone's flipping around an iPad and telling you to tip when they really didn't do anything. And then we've talked about whether or not those tips actually get to the person that you are standing there staring at in the face. So I wonder, as we talk about tipping during the holiday season, are people most likely, just from this is probably just as best an educated guess as you can give, are people being generous across the board and tipping when they otherwise might feel pressure to but not want to, and sort of feel that pressure but not like it? Or are they taking the instances where they are willing to tip and now tipping more?
I think it's on the rise because of obligation. I think a lot more. We're even talking about it now. We're talking about tipping. And so I think a lot of folks feel obligated to tip. You get that, like you said, the screen flipped around. And my favorite is they don't say, would you like to tip? They say, oh, you need to answer this question.
Yeah.
They don't even want to talk to you about a tip, but they want the tip. So I think there's a lot of going on with obligation that we're hearing a lot about it. We're feeling that fatigue. And sure, it'll increase for other reasons, but I think it's a lot about the obligation rather than the desire to give. And that is where we should stop and say, okay, I got that feeling of obligation. How do I deal with that in the moment rather than just reflex make the tip?
I thought something that was interesting. We looked at this survey from Bankrate, and one of the things that was mentioned in the story there was, if you're tipping your mail carrier or these things that I kind of did a little informal survey around the group that was sitting by me in the newsroom and said, look, I'll be the first one to step out and say, I've never thought of nor have I tipped my postal carrier. And I wonder, is that something that people do? Like, am I just the cheapskate and I haven't known it?
I thought
the survey told me that I was okay, but I wonder what you could tell us about that.
I think the same thing. In fact, I thought, what an old-fashioned notion to tip your letter carrier. Mm-hmm. And there are probably reasons for that. We probably saw our letter carrier more. It was the same person all the time. Could even have been your neighbor, but but nowadays it's different. And I think that it still drives home. I thought the same when I saw the survey. Am I a terrible person? I'm not tipping these people.
Yeah.
But I think what the survey said is, if you're doing that, do you intend to give them the same amount or more? Mm-hmm. And that let me off the hook a little bit to go, oh, okay, I'm not a terrible person for not doing that. And just if you're going to tip them, are you going to do the same amount or more?
I think you're exactly right that depends on like the personal relationship you have there. In a day gone by, at least here in my neighborhood, I can say I don't have the same postal worker come by every day. Someone drives up, the music's kind of playing loud in their truck, and then they move on, and I don't know exactly what they're going. All right, you mentioned it's important to kind of budget this out and think about, here's what I have to spend during the holidays, including tips. I think that's a really great bit of advice. Anything else that we should keep in mind as we kind of plan for the holidays that you would say is just good, sound financial advice, a way to be smart and generous at the same time?
Yeah, I think not only having a plan, but what you said I want to elaborate on is really, what's your relationship with the person that you're buying for or giving to? That should play into your plan. You should be able to say, oh, I'm going to tip this person because we have this relationship, or because I rely on them heavily for that service, or not just because you feel obligated. And so we have to train our brain to get out of the guilt part and get into the intentional giving, the intentional spending. That is huge when it comes to your spending plan. And so I would add that to your spending plan is the psychology behind it.
And some of it, I think, is just across the board. Here's just my thing as a dad. I'd say, people ask, what do you want for Christmas? Nothing.
Yeah.
Don't give me anything, because I live in a world where if I want something or need something, I'm like
It's
3 clicks away, and
Yeah.
Amazon, Jeff Bezos will deliver it to me in 2 days.
That's right.
And I'm in pretty good shape. So I just wonder how that shifts the overall approach of gift giving, especially as you think about it with like a budget or being generous, to know that, look, it's hard to figure out what someone wants, and so maybe generosity is in something besides the financial side.
Absolutely. In fact, that we always think that it has to be money, it has to be a tip, it has to be something like that. But if you really have a relationship with your letter carrier, would cookies go just as far as $10 or something like that? So you really have to think about not only the relationship, but also what's meaningful. And money's not always meaningful, and buying or getting gifts is not always meaningful these days. And so real gestures of the relationship are probably better.
Yeah. I think what we can agree on is that it's a good time to be generous.
Absolutely.
Just find a way to do it responsibly so that you can continue to be generous in the future.
Amen.
Shane Stewart is a DMBA financial advisor, and he's here with us regularly on KSL. We appreciate your insight. Happy holidays to you. Thanks so much. And thanks to all of you for letting me ride along with you for the last couple of hours as we talked about the things going on in our state. And I can't wait to be with you again on Friday. I'll be back, and then I will be back again a little bit in the coming weeks as well. We'll see you next time on Inside Sources.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon, 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. It's 55 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. KSL's top story. Salt Lake County Council is proposing a new ordinance requiring sex-specific changing rooms at rec centers. KSL News Radio's Amy Kobabe is live with details. Amy?
Jeff, dozens of people packed into the county council meeting this afternoon, both strongly in support